Hello, good morning everyone, and welcome to the final event of the Via Flexi project. So it's hybrid digital and physical, as you can see. Today in Rome, myself and Andrea Basilico, who is project manager for EnelX Way for this project, we are in our EnelX store in Rome, Corso Francia, which is one of the locations of our CEF projects that we have been awarded as Enel, and all of you, unfortunately, due to the pandemics situation and travel restrictions still in Europe, you are digital. So it's a hybrid event, and I'll walk you through the agenda today that will walk us through the achievements of this project, the major milestones that as a team we ran over during more than 4 years of work together. And we are going to celebrate what is certainly a successful project for the companies that have been involved, but also for the European Commission that has been sponsoring this action. So very briefly today, after a quick overview of the project and the project partners that were involved in it, we are going to be handing over to Cinea representative and also project officer of our project, Erika Fulgenzi, to walk us through the role of Connecting Europe facility framework that has been so important to sustain mobility actions during these first years of market development. And we're going to see the results and major outcomes of the project in the 3 European member states in which Via Flexi has been implemented: Italy, Spain and France, with also the contribution of Austria, that has been a very active member state thanks to the involvement of Verbund in CEF projects, and has helped us in the development of this project by ensuring that the Via Flexi was a part of a wider story. We're going to be closing the event with the contribution of our automotive partners that are on board of the project, and we're going to be leaving some minutes for a wrap up and Q&A session. I'll move forward, and let me start from the very beginning of why we were in this project together. So let me walk you through the overview of the action and project partners. Just 1 second. Okay. That's it. So the Via Flexi project was originally filed for the Connecting Europe Facility Transport Call back in 2016. As Enel, but also for other partners of this project, this was the one of the first innovation initiatives that we submitted to the CEF facility framework. Actually, for Enel, this was the second, after the first project of this kind, which was EVA Plus back in 2015. EVA Plus was more focused on 180 fast chargers in Italy at 50 kilowatt power and 20 fast chargers at 50 kilowatt power in Austria. But there were also other initiatives at that time, like Corridor E project or Unity in France, that were trialed at 50 kilowatt. Then in 2016, due to the advancement of technology and first availability of charging stations as more mature technology that were going to provide power above 150 kilowatt, we started finding new projects on developing the first backbone of long distance travel European infrastructure for battery electric vehicles. And this is typically, as most of you know, typically defined with the acronym of HPC, high power technology, and that's the scope of this project. In this project we set up a total of 14 sites in Italy, Spain and France, 8 in Italy, 2 in France and 4 in Spain, that were implemented and made available to our customers during 2019 and throughout 2019 and 2021. The total budget for this project was close to 7 million euros. Total project budget, as you can see in this chart, is 6,690,000, 50 of which has been co-funded by European Commission through the CEF Transport 2016 call. It was one of the first backbone, HPC backbone, that has been made available in Europe, particularly for Italy. This is still a good portion of the available HPC infrastructure in our country. And it was of paramount importance, the support of the European Commission, not just in terms of financing the activity and supporting the project partners into managing the investment risk in a stage where the market is still very immature and the market development index of EV sales on total volume is very low, is single digit still. It's quite different in several countries, but for example in Italy in 2021 it was slightly north of 4%. So we are still far away from mass market, and CEF instruments have been really instrumental in supporting private companies into deploying this kind of project and kickstarting the mass market transition. But besides the financial support of the European Commission, I want also to strengthen, as we will see in Erika's speech, the continuous support in terms of project implementation and project management that we have been fortunate to have in our 4 years together. Also, as you can imagine, managing uncertainties, risks, and surprises in some cases that are quite normal into an innovation action. Now we go next. Polenta. Okay, this is the overview of the project partners. As you know, it's a blending of different industries that came together into implementing this project. EnelX as a project leader, Verbund from member state Austria, IBIL from member state Spain, EDF from France, and then Enedis also from France, and Group Renault and Nissan from the automotive side. It's a blending of partners that I think is a nice testimony of how e-mobility is really a converging business. It is probably a business of its kind, in the sense that, as you can see in one project, around building charging infrastructure for early adopters, because that's what we're talking about. In 2022, e-mobility is in early adopters phase still, as less than 15% of users actually drive electric, so mass market is yet to come. But it's a testimony of how oil and gas, e-mobility, energy infrastructure, automotive, they do converge together to create appealing concept and solutions for the end users. We go to the next chart. And I hand over to our project officer that has been so patient I have to say, in supporting us in these 4 years of project together and pushing us into what is the final result of this project, which is 100% achievement and very close to 100% fulfillment of funding that was made available to the partner, which is also a great implementation success in all sense and purposes. So I hand over to you, Erika, if you're there, and buongiorno, because the other advantage that we had, at least as Enel, that Erika is Italian, so the language helped also in managing the project. I have to be honest in that. Ciao Erika. La sentiamo?
Yeah.
Ok.
Now, I think it's better now. So, good morning, everybody. Buongiorno. I'm a bit sad not to be in Rome today, but I must say that Brussels is delighting us with a nice sun. So I feel less away from you guys. I'm very happy to be here today to celebrate a bit Evia Flexi. It was a long run, as Giovanni said, because it's yes, almost now 5 years, because I was involved already in the evaluation of the project. So really beginning of 2016, when we discussed about this project coming from Italy and dealing with high power charging deployment, one of our pioneer, one of our first project dealing with that. And now today we will discuss together with you about what you achieved and how this path went through. So we can start with the first slide. If someone, the second one, I wanted to start with an image for discussing today. Today we are, next one please. Yes, thank you. No, the previous one, the one with the heart.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to say that share with you a vision today, that is this green art of Europe. I hear a lot of echo. I don't know if you... Okay, I go ahead and you tell me if there is something that I can do from my side to reduce it. Anyway, I wanted to say that we have a common vision, I think all the people today around this table, that is the fact that we should end towards a greener Europe. The art of Europe that is shown in all the policies and strategies that the European Union is presenting is really related to greening. Next slide, please. And therefore, we had to do this. We put in place several instruments to accompany you that are the stakeholder and they are the practitioners results. So my presentation will be structured in 3 parts. I will give an overview of what we found so far with CEF1, that was the first financial scheme for alternative fuels that as CINEA we founded. Then give a very short overview on the EU objective and policies, and then concluding by giving you some first insight on the new financial instrument that is the CEF, founded under the CEF2, that is the Alternative Fuel Infrastructure Facility. So we can start with the CEF1, that was indeed the, thank you.
Cos'è? CEF2, cos'è?
The step one was running between 2014 and 2020, and that is one of the priority, the alternative fuels. We have to consider that at that time, when we launched the program, this was still a very innovative sector with a lot of problems, with a market that was not developed. And therefore, the contribution of the European Union was really to help practitioner, private entities to try to overcome bottlenecks and to break through these new markets. All over, we managed to found 200 actions, as you can see from these slides, in very different sectors, not only electromobility, but we also found CNG, LNG, and hydrogen, for a total contribution of total investment of about 5 billion euros. So this was a first important injection of funds towards this new technology. And then next slide, please. If we go a bit more zooming into the electromobility part, we see that out of the 200 projects that we found with the CEF1, 45 relate to electricity, and out of these 45, 43 are electricity for roads. And among these 43, I see the project, for instance, the predecessor of EVA Flexi, EVA Plus, as Giovanni mentioned just earlier, always led by Enel, and also the successor, the Ambra E, that will continue the path of EVA Flexi. But then we have also several other projects that are deal or are part of where the partner that of EVA Flexi are part of. I see that there is Verbund, Renault, Nissan. These are all usual suspects for us, in the sense are really part of the stakeholders that are bringing up together with us the electromobility in Europe. And for this project of electromobility, I would like to give you two important numbers. One is the amount of funds, of EU funds we provided to them. That is more or less 300 million of EU funds for electromobility project. And the second element that I would like to give to you is the number of supply points. With this EU contribution, we managed to structure a bit a network that, saying between us, back in 2014 was really poor. And we managed to deploy with our public intervention over 70,000 supply points for road. It means that we start to create kind of granularity in our network to try to fill the gap of this anxiety that it's accompanying the users that infrastructure is not available in Europe. Next slide, please. And this will be, we know that to do all this, to reach this achievement, as Giovanni mentioned before, there were challenges and there were obstacles and bottlenecks because the market was a new market. The breakthrough was not so evident. The procedure, the process, the administrative steps were very complex. And analyzing our project from the CEF1, we learned something. We learned that Commission, together with the member states and together with the stakeholders, should reflect on how to smooth certain bottlenecks. For instance, we realize how important it is for an electromobility project to have primary location, a network planning. This is really an essential element and takes a lot of time because you have to select location and then to negotiate with the landowners and then to find good contract, maybe framework contract at national level to speed up the deployment. And we know that this requires time, requires effort, and sometimes brings some delays. Building permits was another big issue because, of course, we are a European Union, but national regulations are different from member states to member states. And therefore, especially in the case of EVA Flexi, deploying in different countries means also have different procedures to get permits from the authorities. And this can also create some difficulties in the implementation. Then we realized that the grid connection possibilities are not the same all over Europe. There are certain countries where it's more length to obtain it and also more complex. And then the project has to react, try to either identify a plan B solution, another location, or alternatives, as for instance, battery storage, in order to supply to the missing possibility to have a grid connection that is powerful enough to really provide electricity to our charging point. And then it goes without saying, national regulation, the fact that member states sometimes require stricter requirements than the grant agreements itself, and the project, of course, has to comply with that. Some legal issues they can always raise. And last but not least, the maturity of the market. There are some member states in Europe where we know that electromobility, it's now with a strong rollout plan. I think, for instance, about the Netherlands or Belgium, where Germany now starting deploying very fast. But we know that there are certain member states, I think mostly about the cohesion country, but Italy and Spain were also a bit difficult country at the beginning, where the market is not sufficiently mature, and therefore it required more time to really involve stakeholders to make your messages pass. But we are heading towards the good way. And next slide, because the European Commission recognized a key role to electromobility for achieving that green heart of its policy. In 2019, the Commission issued the European Green Deal, that is a very important strategy, because he said that Europe should become the first carbon neutral continent by 2050. If we think about that, 2050 is really behind the corner. And transport being one of the most polluter element of our emission quota, let's say we have to intervene on sustainability of transport. That's why in 2020, a sustainable and smart mobility strategy was published, indicating specific initiatives that should be implemented by member states, by stakeholders, with the support, of course, of the European Commission, in order to become greener, and especially in making the transport become more sustainable and greener. And then a very important and innovative element was the European climate law that was issued last year in July. For the first time, the strategy and policy of the European Commission become law. This fits 55. Now we have this objective to reduce gas emission for cars of 55% by 2025. And we have really to speed up. And the Commission already foreseen in their strategy the fact that 1 million public charging points should be available in 2025 in Europe. So we were talking about 17,000 with CEF1. We have still a lot to fill the gap, but we see that the ecosystem is moving, because now it's the European Commission that is financing, but there are national schemes that are in place, regional schemes. So we see that really is a policy that starts to be embraced in every corner of Europe, and this will be the added value. Last but not least, we have also to mention that there was also, and this relates very much to you that are implementing projects, there was a revision of the AFI directive, of the directive about the infrastructure related to alternative fuels, because we realized, the Commission realized that the sector needs clarification in terms of what infrastructure we would like to see deployed on our territory, but at the same time give more attention to the users, and so introduce more clarity in all what are the aspects of interoperability, cross-border traveling, pricing, in order really to facilitate the uptake of this new technology. Next one, please. And now we will do all this in practice. We will do thanks to the CEF2, so to the second program related to that will allow us to continue financing projects dealing with electromobility, for instance. I know that Enel and some of the person and the institution that are involved today are already well aware of it, because you have also successful projects under this call, but recently was launched this first call for the alternative fuel infrastructure facility that foreseen different possibility of intervention with priority on zero emission, and here is where we see electromobility and low emission. And for the zero emission, we will have two sub-priority. One that is related to the typology of project that you are doing now, the AVIA Flexi, the deployment of high power charging infrastructure. And then the other one is for electricity, more for public services, as for instance, buses. Next one, please. And we have a very important budget to do that, higher than what was for CEF1, because we will have more than 1.5 billion euro that will allow us to finance a lot of projects, we hope. And we would like to put forward once more this concept of blend, as Giovanni was saying, a blending of partner. In our case, is a financial blending, because we would like that the public financing, the public sector could have a leverage effect on private loans. And this is the challenge of this new facility for this project, is really the fact that we request to the beneficiary to come already with a bank support, with a loan that is already signed, in order to show that with the support of the EU funding, the action could be could receive also private funding then to go ahead. Next one. And this is just to give you a first overview of the results. The blending call, the alternative facility call will be a rolling call. It means that there will be cutoff dates for several years. So this year there was the first one in January, there will be a second one in June, a third one in November, and then we will have two additional one in 2023. This means that gives the possibility to beneficiaries that are not immediately ready not to wait 1 year, 1.5 years to receive another opportunity for funding, but will give every X number of months the possibility to submit. The first call was less successful of what we expect because we received only 22 proposals. We were expecting more, but then we thought that the complexity of the new tool could have created some, let's say, slow it down in the process, and also the fact that there are these rolling calls every month, the possibility of course, submit in June instead of January would have released a bit the pressure from the beneficiary. Anyway, out of these 22 projects that were submitted, 15 were successful. But as you see, we have committed only a little part of the budget available, always only about 80 million euros. So there is still a big chunk available for the next call. Next slide, please. And if you see, this is for me is an interesting slide because out of the 15 projects, 10 relate to electromobility. Not all to unit costs, so not all to your typology of action to deploy an high power charging station, also to electric buses, but it really gives a picture that the focus now in the policy instrument is about really electromobility. And this is the last slide. If you remember, the first one was this green bush that is composed by little leaves. And this is our role that we have to do it. As I said before, I see Via Flexi as a pioneer project because already back in 2016, they invested in high power charging. That is what we finance today with the AFIF. We don't finance anymore low charging or fast charging. We really deploy starting from 150 kilowatt. So Via Flexi, being not a big project because it was 14 high power charging, but already deployed in 3 countries. So already foreseen a cross-border dimension of the project, contributing to 4 corridors, contributing to the TEN-T network, represent really the kind of activity and the action that we would like to see, of course, on a larger scale now, for achieving the Green New Deal. And so my message today is a very positive one. Let's say we start very well. We should continue in that way, each of us bringing his own piece of green, let's say, automotive, energy companies, CPO, all of us really focusing on a better and greener Europe. Thanks a lot, and I'm very keen to hear to all your experience.
Thank you very much, Erika, for your kind contribution and today, but more importantly for your support in these years together. As you said, this was just the beginning. In CEF2, Enel was fortunate and also brave enough to be awarded with a next round of funding. It is going to be public information once we sign the grant agreement, but for example in Italy we submitted in CEF2 a new project which is going to be deploying 192 charging points, if I recall, very close to 200, and it's a big jump compared to Via Flexi. Via Flexi was just the beginning, 8 sites, roughly 30 charging points are made available to the final users, but now the new one that we submitted in CEF2 on the first cutoff date was more than 200. So we are certainly working in this direction, and certainly as Enel we will submit a new project also for the second cutoff date in November for the 2023-2025 deployment, because as you rightfully said, Erika, we're just at the beginning of the transition. There is a decade of electrification ahead for all of us. So it's really, this was just the first project. I think this is also very important because most of the innovation, they have at that rate most of the innovation projects, right? Not every innovation activities then goes to the mass market. There is a typical chasm of adoption between early adopters and mass market, and finally we are crossing that chasm with the mobility also with your support. So I think the new project is also a great testimony of our cooperation between private company and European Commission. So it was important for me to underline that. I would like now to get in the details of this seed project of high power charging infrastructure. Going through our countries, through Italy, Spain and France that implemented the project, but also bringing the testimony and success story of Verbund from Austria that helped us in managing the project, bringing the project to the success that we are sharing today, but also in light of their experience with CEF facilities and similar projects. So I will start from Italy. I will start from Federico Caleno, who is managing our business, e-mobility business in Italy, and has been active in this business for a very long time. Also my former boss in Enel, and is now leading the e-mobility business, and of course Via Flexi in Italy was one of the first deployment projects. So I hand over to you, Federico, and then to Andrea for Italy.
Thanks a lot, Giovanni. Good morning, all of you. I would like to describe briefly the status of development of activities in deployment of a charging station in Italy, starting from a description of all the deployment that we are doing for all the infrastructure in public areas. Considering that most of these results have been possible thanks to funded projects like EVA Plus, the first project we had for the deployment of DC charger, 50 kilowatt DC charger, and a Via Flex for the power charger. So the current situation in Italy is described in this slide. We are reaching 15,000 charging point operated by EnelX Way up to date, and thanks to EVA Plus and thanks to Via Flex, we have this increasing part of DC fast charging station in our portfolio product we have for public recharge. So and we are growing in deploying this infrastructure, increasing the percentage of fast chargers. We are moving from 50 kilowatt to 75 kilowatt in order to provide DC charging capabilities in urban areas, but we are deploying a very huge HPC network in highways, in all the routes that can enable long trip for EV customer. Today we have a plan to reach more or less 18,000 charging point by the end of this year. And one of the features that is in our infrastructure since the beginning, since the first deployment for pilot project in Italy, is the interoperability with many mobility service providers. So since the beginning, we started deploying a network able to manage many mobility service providers. Today we have more than 60 mobility service providers, Italian mobility service providers, but a lot of European mobility service providers that can have access to our network through one-to-one contract, but also thanks to the object platform that make available also interoperability with the European mobility service provider. And our goal is to increase the number of mobility service providers that can access our network in order to make very easy the life of EV users in Italy, but also in Europe. If we go to the next slide, we see a deep dive on the plan we have for HPC network. We, in 2021, thanks to projects like VFLEX, we accelerate a lot in deploying HPC network. And we closed the 2021 with more or less 100 sites equipped with HPC chargers, considering that we closed the 2020 with less than 5 locations. So we are accelerating a lot in the deployment of this type of charger, and our goal is to reach by 2025 more or less 800 locations equipped with charging stations, HPC charging station, with more than 3,000 charging points, able to charge up to from 100 kilowatt to 350 kilowatt. And in our network plan, here you see the location that we have already contractualized with a landowner or with partner. And our goal is to deploy locations that are we clusterize in basic, convenience, and premium location, depending on the service that we can provide to the customer that use our network. So this is a picture of the status of the activity and the plan that we have for 2022, leveraging on the new project that we achieved the funding thanks to the CEF2 project, and we expect to have other funding in order to comply to perform this deployment in a very fast way. So thanks a lot for your kind attention. I give the floor to Andrea to continue the description of the activity in Italy.
Hello everyone, and thank you, Federico. I'm going into detail to the charging stations that were deployed as part of the EVFLEX action. As you can see, in Italy we deployed as EnelX 8 ultra-fast charging sites. 5 of them are located in the north of Italy, 2 of them in the center, and the last one in the Apulia region in the south of Italy. All the charging sites are located at a maximum distance of 10 kilometers from the core network corridors in Italy, and in particular from the Mediterranean and the Scandinavian Mediterranean core network corridors. All the sites are publicly accessible to AV drivers 24/7, and they are composed of 4 charging stations at a maximum power of 350 kilowatt. Each charging station is equipped with 1 charging point and 2 connectors, one with CCS interface and the other one with CHAdeMO interface. The only exception is the site of Candela, which is composed of 2 charging units at 150 kilowatt and 1 charging unit at 300 kilowatt. Each charging unit is equipped with 2 charging points, so in total 6 electric vehicles can charge in parallel at the site. All the sites were deployed from the beginning of the action to March 2022. 6 of them are currently active and 2 of them are under activation. All the sites ensure access to multiple mobility service providers through interoperable interfaces, meaning that the final customer can access and pay the charging session to the mobility service provider. Or in alternative, the customer can access with a dock charging, so without interacting with any mobility service provider, but directly with the charging point operator. And now you will see the virtual tour of the charging station deployed in Biandrate in northwest Italy.
EnelX project is a co-financed project by Connecting Europe Facilities program of the European Commission. The project envisages the installation of 14 ultra-fast charging stations in Italy, Spain and France. EnelX is the Italian partner for the installation of 8 ultra-fast charging stations within all the Italian territory. These charging stations are available 24 hours, 7 days per week. The EV users can have access through a mobility service provider or through the ad hoc charging. All the partners of the EVIA project are interoperable with these charging stations.
We are in Biandrate, in Novara, northwest Italy, where we have one of the 8 high-power charging sites envisaged under the project EVIA Flexi. The site is located on the Mediterranean core network corridor, in particular at the intersection between the highway A4, which goes from Turin to Venice, and the highway A26, which goes from Genova to the Alps. The site includes 4 high-power charging stations and 4 charging points at maximum power of 350 kilowatt. Each charging point has 2 connectors. One connector with a CHAdeMO interface and the other connector with a combined charging system interface. Now we will continue with the with a preliminary analysis on the data available from the charging stations. As you can see, the energy delivered by the charging station faced a significant increase from the activation of the first station to the end of the project. As you can see, in the fourth quarter of 2020, we delivered 0.6 megawatt hour, while in the first quarter of 2022 we delivered in Italy 80 megawatt hours. This increase is due both to the gradual increase in the number of charging stations active as part of the project, as well as to a higher number of electric vehicles available on the roads. We experienced on our charging station a high utilization rate. This may be due both to the strategic location of the sites installed as part of the project, as well as of an increasing interest of EV drivers to high power charging. The total energy delivered by the charging station from the beginning of the project to the 31st of March 2022 is approximately 200 megawatt hours, and all the energy delivered is produced from renewable sources. From this preliminary analysis, we also derived that approximately 50% of the energy was delivered from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And now I'll give back the word to Giovanni.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Now it is the turn to go in digitally, unfortunately, in Spain. So I hand over to our colleagues Miquel and Luis from Ibil and Repsol, and I welcome them to our meeting, and I thank both of you and your companies because you are a great part of this success story, and it has been a pleasure working together.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, let us explain why Repsol is here. We entered as an affiliated entity hand by hand with Ibil. We are shareholders of the 50% of Ibil, so that's why we entered into the project. Also, by December of 2019, we bought Ibil's both private and public network. So that's why we are here, and thank you all for us being here. So let us explain the Repsol's strategy as a CPO and as an energy provider in terms of EV network, charging network deployment in Spain. You can see the first slide, or yeah. Are you seeing the slides? Or yeah, there we go. Yeah, thank you very much. So right now, our strategy by the end of this year actually is to continue the acceleration that we started a few years ago in terms of deployment. And our goal is to, by the end of this year, have over 1,000 different locations, different charging stations throughout all the country. That means having covered all regions, provinces, municipalities with over 100,000 population. That means all the territory, right? We are focusing especially in the national transport corridors and also in the main urban areas. And this deployment is fully focused in both fast and ultra-fast chargers, powers from 50 up to 350 kilowatts, as is the case of the chargers deployed through this project, right, through the EVA Flexi project. And we are heavily leveraging this project on this deployment on our service stations. It's been mentioned before how the access to the land may be a problem or a stopper in terms of fast deployment. Well, as we are owners of many stations here in Spain, That's a great opportunity for us to accelerate this deployment. Also, we believe that the service stations are strategic locations in terms of deployment for EV chargers, because the user is already used to go there, and also the locations are already located in strategic positions such as transport corridors. And also, a service station, as its name says, there are many services around there that, of course, the EV user can take profit of them. I'm talking about restaurants, toilets, and convenience stores, and very important, staff attending those. Can you see me here? Okay. Sorry, I was told that you couldn't see me.
No, we can see it is actually just you are frozen in the video.
Okay,
but we can hear you and we can see the charts.
And let's go on. I'm not gonna change that much anyway. Okay. So, as I was saying, the service stations as a strategic location for the deployment for EV chargers. So that's our overall strategy through all Spain. Let's focus on the 4 sites that we have deployed in this project, the EVIA Flexi project. Those are, as you can see in the map on the left part of the slide, located through all Spain. There's one on the south, one in the middle, right in Madrid, one up in the north in the Basque Country, and then one very close to Andorra and to France in Catalonia. All the sites, by the exception of one, have 4 chargers, all of them up to 350 kilowatts. The only exception is La Jonquera in Catalonia, the one pretty close to Andorra, that counts with 2 chargers up to 180 kilowatts. And now I think that we can see, we can perform the virtual tour of our charging stations.
EBIL and Repsol deployed the first ultra-fast charging stations in Spain as part of the EVIA Flexi project. EBIL installed these ultra-fast charging stations in strategically located service stations of Repsol. The EVIA Flexi charging stations in Spain enable long-distance travel in Europe, with stations located within driving range from each other. Lopidana, located just 120 kilometers away from the French border, was not just the first EVIA Flexi station, but it was also the first high-power charging station to be opened in the Iberia region back on April the 1st, 2019. This location is equipped with 4 charging stations and can charge up to 4 electric vehicles simultaneously, with up to 175 kilowatts for each vehicle, or 350 kilowatts if there are 2 vehicles. Each charging stall is equipped with CHAdeMO and CCS connectors, which ensure that any electric vehicle with fast or ultra-fast charging capabilities will enjoy the best possible charging experience every time for every customer. The selected setup maximizes availability and facilitates maintenance by allowing the disconnection of individual converters for maintenance without discontinuing the service in the remaining units. All these charging stations are connected to EBIL's back end, enabling all sorts of digital services around the clock. Repsol customers can charge with their RFID card or the Waylet app of Repsol. Customers of other e-mobility service providers can charge with their preferred RFID card or app. It is also possible to charge with just a credit or debit card, without downloading any specific app, just by scanning a QR. Thanks to the EVIA Flexi project, long-distance electric travel is now possible.
Okay. Morning, everyone. So, first of all, I'd like to start by thanking Sinia and the project officer, Erika, for her continuous support during the project, and also all the other beneficiaries of the project, as well as Repsol, for the great cooperation we had for the whole duration of the project. If we could get to the next slide, please. Okay, here. I would like to provide you a few lessons that we learned through the project from a more technical perspective, so to say. We at EVIL executed the installation of the charging infrastructure, and we also performed the operation and maintenance tasks and services for Repsol. So with that in mind, these are a few key learnings I'd like to share with you today. When it comes to the installation process, well, we found out that installation and grid connection roughly amount for the roughly 50% of the total cost. And here it's worth noting that we have experienced relevant change from the DSOs in Spain around 2021. Before 2021, we had roughly an estimate of approximately 80% of fast or ultra-fast charging connections requiring upgrades on the grid connection. And after 2021, this has dramatically changed. Now it's in most of the cases it's the DSO who's taking care of the power enhancements or the grid enhancements. We believe that this is a direct consequence of the regulatory incentives for the DSOs, and also due to the increased e-mobility awareness of DSOs and increased awareness overall of the role that they need to play if we have to successfully roll out the charging infrastructure that we will need throughout Europe on time to meet our climate neutrality and carbon neutrality targets. The main pain point has already been mentioned earlier. It was the permit process. Getting the permits has been quite challenging. The pandemic didn't help, but it was already a problem before the pandemic. Let's be honest. And just to give you a hint of how bad a problem this was, we have had to discard certain locations due to the time it was taken to get the permits. It's been quite painful, honestly. When it comes to the operation and maintenance, it has already been mentioned, the selective setup has been done in such a way that we ensure that maintenance causes minimum interference with the service. So we went for modular approaches, and this also provides us flexibility, as we believe that most EV models, present and future, will have more than enough with 175 kilowatts in most cases. But however, we are already able to provide up to 350 kilowatts for those EV models that mount the newest high voltage batteries, 800 volt batteries or higher, which are to become more common in the near future. When it came to operation maintenance, the main pain points were related to the user interfaces, and more specifically to the lack of standardization when it came to the human-machine interfaces on the charging stations. This generates an additional burden for the users who, every time that they arrive at the charging station, if the charging station manufacturer or the CPO have different procedures. They have to get familiarized with those, and this is one of the root causes of many of the tech support calls that we get. So we have some space to improve on this area for the coming months and years. Next slide, please. Yeah, so some final remarks regarding this installation, operation, and maintenance. As we said, we need to speed up the permit and grid connection process. We need to work on the user's experience. We need to ensure that some minimum requirements are met when it comes to metrology, price transparency, payment convenience, etc. We need to do that on a European level, I believe. And we need to keep those interfaces as simple and intuitive as possible. We should ensure that charging station information is publicly available, both static information, where the charging stations are located, when they are open. Ours are 24/7, but it's not the case for all the charging stations in Europe. So we should know whether the charging station will be reachable or not when we plan a trip, and also the pricing. We should also have ideally, we should also have access to some dynamic information. Fundamentally, availability should be available. If you let me repeat the word. And to finish, I would like to share with you a couple of thoughts regarding the business case. The cost of high-power charging stations are quite high. And this makes getting a return on the investment even harder in countries where the EV penetration is a bit lower than in the pioneer countries in Europe. Okay, so this is why the incentives, such as the ones from CEF, are instrumental to enabling us to move forward and to spearhead the introduction of high-power charging in Spain, in our case, right? Because we need the infrastructure in place before the EVs are there. Otherwise, customers may not be willing to invest on an electric vehicle. If we look into the future, I didn't finish with the slide, so if we could have it presented, thank you. If we look into the future, I think we should bear in mind, and if we think about high-power charging, we should bear in mind two important trends. One we already mentioned, it's the trend towards higher voltage batteries, which will translate into higher charging powers supported by cars. This means that charging powers in excess of 200 kilowatts, which are nowadays only supported by 4 EV models, 4 passenger car models, they will become common in a few years. So what we called fast charging when this project began will be regarded as regular or normal charging in the near future, I believe. So it's important that we keep investing in high power charging. And the other trend is the more than likely electrification of heavy vehicles, of trucks in the coming years. These will also be electrified. The offer of electric truck models is increasing slowly. Truck manufacturers have shown a clear path towards electrification, and they will require ad hoc solutions for trucks, something we may call e-truck stations. New charging technologies are coming, specifically tailored for the use case of trucks for long-haul trucking. This is the case of megawatt charging system, which will probably be coexisting on the same locations with CCS. And this will result in total charging powers exceeding 5 megawatts in many cases. This means that the grid connection will be a big issue, both from a cost or business case perspective and from a timing perspective. I think we are on a right track for passenger cars in Europe, for deploying infrastructure for passenger cars in Europe. charging passenger cars. But probably we will need some specific programs when it comes to infrastructure for trucks. We should start thinking about that, given the time that we expect that such projects will take in the near future. So that was all from my side, and thank you. So I hand over to the next colleague.
Thank you very much, both of you, Michele and Luis. It was a pleasure to hear from your success in Spain. And now I hand over to France, I think to Lucas. Bonjour, Lucas. Ciao.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
You go.
So I will have the pleasure to present to you the deployment in France. So if we could begin with the first slide with our location for the station. It was one of the biggest challenge of the project to find a great location for the station, to attract customer and to have a key location to succeed to develop e-mobility across Europe. So our two stations are deployed, one in the Orly airport in the south of Paris, in the Cornet-Quart, in a gas station just in the airport. As you, it's a little on the picture, but it's just the gas station on the airport. And the other one is along the highway A7 in France. So it's along two main corridor network, as we see it in the map. And it's on a parking from the highway operator, one of the biggest highway operator in France, Vinci Autoroute. So it's just in the north of the city of Valence in France, south of Lyon. So it's a major axe in France to descend from the north to the south of France. So if we switch to the next slide, we'll see more about this station and how they were conceived. So in each of our station, we have two chargers of 350 kilowatts with only one charging point. So each charger can only charge one electric vehicle at the time. And we also have one charger of 50 kilowatts with two charging points this time, so we can charge two vehicles simultaneously. We needed this 50 kilowatt charger because of French legislation, because it will allow us, we'll see on the next slide, to have AC plug in order to respect French legislation on the consumption of the station. On our station, we also have a system of power units to power the 350 kilowatt charger. So it's very specific to this kind of high power charger to have the power delocated to a power cabinet outside the charger itself. So it's really specific to this kind of station. And of course, in order to have a connection to the grid, we install a high voltage transformer in each one of the location, one on 630 kilowatts at the station of Orly, and one of 1 megawatt at the station of Valence, because we have less constraint at Valence on the network, so it was possible for us to have much more power on this station. So on the next slide, we'll see the equipment in order to illustrate this conception. So we chose the manufacturer Tritium to provide us the charger from this station. So on the left, you see the 350 kilowatt charger in DC only, with two kind of plugs, the CHAdeMO and the CCS2. On the right, directly, the famous power unit I was talking about, which power this 350 kilowatt chargers. And then we got the 50 kilowatt charger with three plugs this time, the CCS2 and CHAdeMO again, but also in alternative current, a type 2 plug in order to in accordance with French legislation. So any kind of electric vehicle can easily charge on this kind of station. And on the right, you also see the transformer to power all the station. But let's talk about also on the next slide about the customer, because all we do in this kind of project is the final purpose is the customer. So how to access to our EVIA flexi charger? We get an access for each type of customer. On the next slide, I'm not sure if it's switched. I'm still on the thank you. So we have an access for each type of customer. The first one, it's when the customer got an EasyVia card on an app EasyVia, so he can easily launch its charge. But obviously, we also link to other EMSP through roaming, either by the connection of an e-roaming platform, JREV, or either by direct OCPI connection. So we allow all other EMSP to access to this EVIA Flexi station in order to maximize the number of charge of our station, and in order to be able to accept all kind of customer. We also have an ad hoc mean of payment in this station. So it's either the EasyVia app you could use to launch your charge, or you also could use a QR code which is displayed directly on the charger. You just have to flash it, you select your charger, and then you just have to enter your banking information from your credit card, and you could easily launch your charge, even if you didn't have any EMSP card or some kind of abonnement from an EMSP provider. So once you succeed to launch the charge, let's talk about tarification on the next slide. I think it's important to talk about how much the customer pay on this EVIA Flexi station. So we choose to have tarification per kilowatt hour. We make the customer price pay for the energy delivered, because we think it's better for this kind of quick and high power charging. It's easiest for the customer to understand the tarification. So on the next slide, we see our tarification. It's 50 cents euros per kilowatt hour for the 50 kilowatt charger, and 70 cents for the 350 kilowatt charger. We have two different prices because we think it's two different kinds of service. The more power, the more expensive, because obviously all the operation, all the capex are more expensive on the 350 kilowatt charger. So we have to have an higher price on this kind of premium charger. We also choose to put an extra cost by the time after 45 minutes of charging, because obviously we don't want customer to stay too much time on this kind of station, because it's very difficult for the next customer to see an electric vehicle which is not charging on the charger, and this customer cannot charge. It's very frustrating. So we try to avoid that at maximum by charging by the time the customer after a given time. Also, this tarification is maybe not definitive. We lack of experiment in a 350 kilowatt charger in order to find the proper price for this kind of dual charger. We talk about it. We don't really know how the real power EVs will be able to absorb on this station. So maybe we will adjust these prices according to the real use of the maximal power, which is the charger is able to provide to the customer. So that was about the charging service, but better than word, we will see a virtual tour of the station, and so you could see those two stations in real, the two at Orly and Valence. So the video is just next. Perfect, thank you. Okay, so I hope you appreciate this video. Now just about the analysis of difficulties we encountered for the French part of the deployment. You already speak about it, but the most difficult part of our deployment was contracting. It was really difficult for us to secure a charging station location. It was very long and complicated negotiation. We take a lot of time to secure those locations. And also the COVID-19 crisis had an impact with negotiation. We were on standby during a very long time because either a gas station or highway operator have bigger issues than talking to us about our contract, unfortunately, during this period. So we lose a lot of time on this part. So as in each project, the access to land is one of the most difficult parts to secure this kind of project. About the deployment, we found that 350 kilowatt charger were a lot more complicated to deploy than the classic 50 kilowatt charger or even a 150 kilowatt charger. It was really a specific kind of charger. We did a lot of work in consumption to succeed to install them, to adapt them to the French grid, electrical grid. It was really difficult. We have a lot of work with Tritium, the supplier of this charger, to succeed to deploy those first Tritium charging station HPC in France. This was the first with this supplier. And then one of the last difficulties, there was this global crisis of the supply of electronic part, and it's also had an impact on the project in past months. We had great difficulties to get some components from the station. So we really need to make sure that we anticipate those kind of supplies because right now it's very difficult to have good lead time from supplier for a charger, for some electrical part needed for the station. It was really difficult for us in the last months. And that's all on my part.
Thank you very much, Lucas. And now we go actually not on the deployment side because we didn't deploy stations in this project in Austria, but I'm sure that it will be very interesting to listen from Carl and the Verbund experience. We have been partners with Verbund in several projects within CEF framework, so good morning to you, Carl, and I hand over for your speech.
Yes, hello, good morning also from my side. Thank you for having the opportunity to present the project Synergy from Verbund, also in this occasion today. So, as already said by Andrea several times, there were no deployments really in Austria in this project, in the EVIA Flexi project. But more or less in parallel to the EVIA Flexi project, we executed the project Synergy, which is the project which I'm telling you more about in the next 10 minutes or so. So, coming to the slides, please. Yes, so the project Synergy was all about deploying stationary local battery storage units next to high power charging stations. The reason for that was already mentioned several times, I think today also, which is really a big issue for charging station providers, namely the high costs on the one hand for the grid connection and also for operating high power charging systems in the field. One of these high costs is the grid fees, the monthly grid fees you have to pay, depending on the level of consumption, the level of power you consume within a day, within the year. The highest peaks are the ones that are counting, depending on the regulation you're in and the country you're living. In this figure, you see a typical charging curve of a location in Vienna by Smatrix. In red, the power of the charging station, and you see, if you make a click, please, you see there's one big leap in the middle, more or less, which is coming up to 150 kilowatt. If you move to the next slide, we focus a little bit on this one. One more, please. You see, this was one charging event which lasted over 15 minutes with more than 150 kilowatts of power. And this and charging events like these were very scarce back in 2019, where this data is taken from. But currently, this is getting more and more common, of course, and also charging events with a multiple of those. So several 150 kilowatt charging sessions in parallel lead to even higher powers needed from the grid, and therefore also determine the fees you have to pay, or the charging station operator has to pay to the distribution system operator. So in order to limit these grid fees, our idea is shown on the next slide, please, where we put a battery between the grid connection and the high power charging stations in order to provide peak shaving with the battery for the charging station, to limit the amount of energy and power consumed by the grid, via the normal grid connection, and in the same time, or in times where there's not so much traffic and charging events taking place at the location, to provide also flexibility for the energy markets and also for system services like primary and secondary control. The next slide will give you a brief overview about the Synergy project. As already said, the project duration was very similar also to the one of EV of Flexi, started also back in 2017, and it was successfully completed at the end of last year, 2021. Our project partners, besides Verbund, were Smartrix and Allego from Germany. And also this project received a co-financing from the European Union, namely from the Connecting Europe facility, but this time it was the Synergy call. As already said, the main target of the project Synergy was the deployment of stationary batteries at high power charging locations in Austria and Germany, to connect the transport infrastructure and also the energy infrastructure, in order to show two different kinds of synergies. On the one hand, the synergies with the transport sector, so to provide more power to the charging stations and also to reduce the cost due to the peak shaving, which I will show you in the next slides then. And the second synergy was to show synergies to the electricity infrastructure by the provision of additional flexibility to the grid, to the electricity markets, and for grid services. On the next slide, you see what we have done in the different locations, or which hardware we deployed. So in the middle, you see that there's the BESS, the battery energy storage system, connected to a microgrid management system, which is controlling, managing, and steering the battery according to the measured power flows at the location. So we also equipped and deployed several additional metering units at the location in order to really see and monitor every power flow within our location. And this microgrid management system is then also connected to a central monitoring system and also to virtual power plants in order to get also direct controls from the different energy markets. Next slide, please. Here you see again this charging event from the beginning, but this time also in green you see also the power from the public grid, sort of from the grid connection point. You see that this difference between these two lines is this energy and this power is coming from the battery. So on the next slide you see also there's the blue line, which is the power from the battery. So in this event, we successfully shaved, so to say, the power which is needed from the grid to a lower level. On the next slide, please. You see there another screenshot, another data from multiple charging events. Also here, an additional data line is provided in violet, which is the 15-minute average at the grid connection point, which is determined, as already said, the grid fee to be paid by the charging operator to the distribution system operator. You see that this violet line is more or less at the constant level of roughly about 50 kilowatt, which was the peak shaving target for this system. So next slide, please. At the beginning of the project, we also did some simulation for such a system. So we wanted to take a look at what is really possible with our battery system, at what level of peak shaving can we really apply, and what are the costs we can save in this way. So here you see on the one hand the blue dots, the peaks with the grid with peak shaving, so with battery systems and with the battery system in place, and the orange dots are the peaks of the charging events without the battery energy storage system. So these are the sorry, back one. Please go back to the previous slide. Not finished yet. Can you go back one slide, please? Yes. So these dots are the simulated results, and you see that we thought that we can have a big impact on the level of grid peaks by the charging system. The red crosses are the real data coming from out of the pilot, and you see also there the simulated result really well correspond with these measures taken from within the pilot. And below that, the blue crosses indicate what kind of peaks we achieved with the peak shaving and the battery systems in place. Also there you see there's a high difference, or we nearly halved the grid peaks by the charging systems. So next slide, please. Now, in total, we deployed 9 battery energy storage systems in locations in Austria and Germany. You see there's 3 locations in Germany: Kaltenkirchen, Heppenheim, and Bergkirchen, and 6 locations in Austria where the battery energy storage systems were deployed within the project and are also operated currently and onwards after the project. On the next slide, you see an overview about typical locations. So the infrastructure on the left side is quite familiar for you, of course, the high power charging infrastructure and also the grid connection transformer station. And next to the transformer station on the right side, you see that there's a small additional container, which is the battery unit. In this case, a small one with 280 kilowatt and 240 kilowatt hours. On the next slide, I show you the more common system, or the system we used in 7 out of the 9 locations, which is a 20-foot container with a lithium-ion battery of 500 kilowatt and 550 kilowatt hours. So that's already it. So for the conclusion, you see that there's a high uptick also in the high power charging infrastructure rollout, also thanks to projects like EVIA Flexi, and also that the power demand for the high power charging infrastructure can have a big impact on the electricity grid, and also can have a big impact on the fees and also on the costs for operating such charging infrastructure. So local buffer batteries, like the ones we used in the Synergy project, can help on the one hand to mitigate large fluctuations and also lower the peak demand at the high power charging stations. And additionally, we can also provide grid services to the transmission system operator, which is getting more and more important as renewable energy is ramping up. And also at the transport sector, we can have synergies
to lower the capex, so the upfront cost for the grid connections, and also the operational expenditures due to peak shaving at the location. So I think that's all from my side. If you have any questions or want to know more about the project Synergy, we have a dedicated website, but you can also, of course, reach out to me.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Carl. And we complete now the overview of partners' contribution today, handing over to Satoko from Nissan, but in general from all the automotive industry in terms of being a representative today of the other side of the moon of e-mobility. So good morning and welcome.
Everyone. First of all, I would like to, can you hear me well? I echoing myself, but okay, I continue. So first of all, I would like to appreciate EnelX team for all the organizations, and then also congratulate all the stakeholders to contribute, to complete this project. So the landscape of auto industry has been changing so quickly in last 10 years. So around 13 years ago, I was back in Japan. I was told by my boss that I would be involved in some EV project in the Nissan headquarters. I thought EV was a future story, but now here we are today. We are seeing EV everywhere. Almost all the vehicle commercials on the TV is only EV. So this back 39 years ago, this future was so much ahead, but now we are living in the future. So electrifications cannot be done only by OEMs, of course, and by all this development of the EV charging network in both quantitatively and qualitatively. So in that case, this cross-Europe corridor project means a lot to accelerate European electrifications and deliver seamless EV experience for European EV drivers. So thank you very much. Today, I would like to share a little bit of the Nissan electrification footprint. I put up some symbolic figures in here. So 2010. In 2010, our first EV, Nissan Leaf, was launched in Europe, US, and Japan at the same timing. So Leaf was the first mass production EV in the industry, as far as I remember. So as there were no other EVs, almost nothing. So we have been investing in charging infrastructure in these three big regions, Europe, US, Japan. But the landscape has been changed. So today, now there are so many actors heavily involved in this developing EV infrastructure. So now we can be more focusing on our customers' experience, charging experience, such as applications or some CPO partnerships, so those things. And then, so 270,000. So this is the units we have sold in Europe. So both Leaf and ENV 200. And I believe this figure is still one of the biggest unit in operation EV in Europe. And so total mileage, 8.6 billion. So this is the total mileage that Nissan EV has driven in Europe. So this is quite a lot and then amazing figures. And then I'm sure this high power charging network will accelerate more, even more for the EV drivers to going around Europe. And then finally, 1.4 billion. So this is the CO2 savings that because of this EV driving, we could save in Europe. So this figure is comparing to the Nissan Micra. So this is actually the footprint of the Nissan Leaf and the ENV 200 since 2010. Okay, so going to the next slide, please. So this year, we are so pleased to launch our new iconic EV, Nissan Ariya. So it has been visible for a while that we are saying that Ariya will be coming, but it's been a bit while. But actually, Ariya will be coming very, very soon in Europe. So this model has a long range. So far, what we confirmed is this has a drive range 530 kilometers in WLTP. So it means area customers, area drivers will enjoy much more long drive journey than Leaf customers today. So also it has a high charging capacities. So it has a 130 kilowatt area can be charged. So high power charging network cannot be separated when we talk about the area. So all the customers already, we have started the pre-orders. They are talking about this, the charging powers, and then also the driving range, and then all this high power charging network availability for area. But it's not only for Nissans, all the OEMs are making EV progress day by day for the driving range and then charging capacities. So Nissan is keep going to deliver more and more advanced EV technologies, so such as better charging experience, not only for the charging capacity, but the battery itself progress. We have already announced in 2028, we will produce the EVs with the solid batteries. It will reduce the charging time much, much shorter than today. So customers are the pain point, which is one of the pain point, which is the long charging time will reduce a lot. So practically, the EV experience will be much, much better than the ICE vehicle experience. But not only that, our objective is to deliver EV ecosystem, including the vehicle connectivity and the second life battery utilizations and then V2G customer offers. So second life battery utilization has been already started. In Japan, we are using a lot of second life batteries to make battery storage. And especially in Japan, we have a lot of natural disasters. So we are a lot of cases, actual cases that the Leaf used batteries is used as a virtual power plant. And then also the V2G customer offer is already available in Europe. So thanks to the EDF, we have a partnership to offer the V2G leasing program in France and in UK. So all those can be only bring fruits to customer and the society together with partners like you. So now more and more this EV ecosystem will be interesting and then also more beneficial for the customer and then meaning for the societies. And I believe that we are creating future together, like all of the members here today. So that was quick, but I would like to thank you very much again for everyone. And I've seen all those 3 regions, 3 countries, the video, seeing this beautiful, the high power chargers and the Renault Nissan models and the nice landscapes. So I'm so proud to see those videos, and I'm so proud of all of you here to actually completed this project. And so again, congratulations to all of you, and then thank you for completing this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind contribution today. And here it is the end of our digital event today. I want to take the chance of the closing remarks to thank all of you for your participation, but more importantly, I would like to thank you, all of you that are present today, for your contribution to the success of this project. And I want personally to thank the EnelX team that throughout the years has been engaged in the implementation and coordination of this project. Some of you are not here connected today. Some of you also changed maybe job during the last 4 years, but all of you were of paramount importance into getting to today and to today's success. So starting, I would say, from Carlos, with whom we initially submitted the project and managed the grant agreement phase, but also to Eliana, that was previously in the role of Andrea as a project manager for the action, and of course Francesco is supporting us in these ventures of funding projects, and in the Italy country team, how could I miss to thank for the very hard work for the implementation. I mean, besides Federico, who is leading our Italian business, but Andrea and Serena from the deployment side, together also with Chiara for the customer acquisition, and then Stefano, who supported us in the analysis of the data, particularly back in 2019 and 20. So I'm sure that similar cross-functional and cross-team work has been requested in most of our partners today. And this is also the good legacy of this kind of complex and multi-year projects that nurture human relationships. So personally, I was very much fortunate of riding this project back in 2016, and I'm fortunate to see this successful and final event today in 2022. So thank you everyone for the participation. It has been a pleasure to stay with you today.